Hello, hi everybody. We're getting ready for our daily live stream. It's Monday after a nice weekend. Relaxing weekend, quiet weekend. So I hope everybody had a nice weekend and relaxing and they're now enjoying the start to the new week. So today we want to look at, by the way, if you're joining my live stream, if you happen to see it on, on Facebook or YouTube showing up, popping up, thinking, who's this guy? We have a new live stream show, which is daily, and it's being streamed on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and I think LinkedIn. But I got a notice from LinkedIn or some one of the sites saying that LinkedIn has a new system we gotta reconfigure. I don't know. I'll check it out tomorrow, I guess. But anyway, we're streaming across several platforms and we're setting up to do it on our website as well. That's not ready as yet, but we'll be soon having the video streamed on our website as well. And of course, you can look back at previous videos that we did daily last week. So Monday was holiday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on YouTube or our Facebook page, Future Stars Media Enterprise Facebook page. Okay, I'm Sean. I'm here, and those of you who are joining us today, welcome. I want to get into basically the reason why we're doing the show, which I did all week last week, but I want to kind of regurgitate some of the reasons behind this endeavor of launching a daily live stream show called Equalped Life. The show is called Equalped Life. It's all about Equalped Life, and Equalped is the brand that we invented and are developing in our company. So welcome. Let me just make sure all the sound and everything is okay, and we'll get on track with. You see on the screen on the top, I think on my left hand side, on my left hand side of the screen, there are four phrases. Authoring our future, the design life, intelligence for the digital age, and the lifestyle of aspiration. And those four things we're going to go through for the show. What do we mean by those things? Because that's what the show is all about. So, people asking me what are the topics we cover, and the topic is life. We cover life. That's what we want to talk about, life. Life and human beings, what it means to be a human being, what is possible in the 21st century, in the digital age, to design our life, to optimize our potential as human beings, right? That's what the show is all about. We're going to go through these four bullet points, as you see on the screen, and kind of delve into why we're doing this live streaming show and why we operate our company, in fact, to connect with you. Okay? So let me just do a quick check, make sure I have people checking the sound and stuff. So once we make sure all that is okay, we're running today. Okay, there we go. So so we want to get into the details of why we are doing the show. And so what time is it? It's now 7 o'clock. Okay, so let's get cracking. Not too late, 7:03, but that's okay. Let's get cracking. So the first thing I want to say is let's deal with authoring our future. So I bandy about this phrase. I don't want it to become a cliche. There is a deep reason behind the phrase authoring our future, which is our philosophy, our business philosophy, but also our life philosophy. But our intention, what we're setting out to do, is developing a platform where anybody, any one of us, anybody who has the heart for it, anybody who has the desire and passion for it, can join us on a journey, on a road, on a path, on a way of life, on the Qualped life, the Qualped lifestyle, to author and design our future. What do we mean by this, by authoring our future? Because I'm a writer, so I don't want to go around saying because I'm a writer, I'm saying we need to be writing stuff all the time. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. The word author our future comes from a very profound place, actually. It came from a lot of research, and I want to talk to you about this because it's a very, very important concept. If we were to grasp this idea, this concept of authoring our future, then we would approach life and people and the world and the universe from a completely different perspective, from a different presupposition. We would more intentionally approach the way we think, live, talk, interact, build relationships, all those things. And so I want to focus on the word author. Why the word author? Now the word author comes from, of course, from the word authority. Authority means power. It means having dominion over something, so when we talk about authoring our future, what we're talking about is authority over our future. Now that is a concept that is alien to a lot of us. A lot of us believe that the future just happens. In fact, life just happens. Things just happen to us. We're not authority. We're not. In fact, the word authority itself, it never applies to the individual. We live in a culture and a society where the word authority applies to the authorities, to the governments, to law enforcement even, to policemen and soldiers and people in uniform. But what we're talking about here, this concept that we want to really drive home to the community that connects with us, to the community that feels we have something of value to offer to them, to the people of like mind with us, people who are setting out to live a life, the desired life, through setting out to live a life that they take control of, that we take dominion over ourselves as individuals. And last week, go back and watch the videos last week if you haven't, because last week we talked about the individual being self-empowered. Self-empowered. Nobody has to say to you, I'm going to empower you. People can do that, of course. Wealthy families empower the members of the families, family. People in government, people in powerful position, they get empowered by their organization and the association that they have. But what we're talking about is self-empowerment. How do we empower ourselves? And last week we talked about self-care, self-development, self-mastery, self-expression as a way of developing self-empowerment. And those videos, we touched on the topics, we never went deep into it, which we will do eventually. But the show is moving into a place where from this week, from tomorrow actually, we start to get guests. And on a daily basis, we're rolling out. Thank you, Susie, I appreciate it that you're arranging guests for us. And we will really, really have a fun time on the show. But a fun time where we're learning, where we're tackling life, where we're warriors on the battlefield of life, out there to win, out there to be champions, not out there to be losers. So we want soldiers, we want people who are strong in their heart, and even if you're not, you want to be, come join us and we'll work on this together. We're on a path, we're on a journey, we're on a way of life here. And we believe that if you join us, we would together. Without you, we can't do it. Without us, you can't do it. That's what we believe. Come join us and let's work together on this thing. But I want to talk about the word authoring our future. Imagine the concept of taking authority over our life to such an extent that we start authoring our future. We start taking authority over our future. Our future doesn't depend on, it does, of course, because the context of society is important. I'm not saying don't take into consideration the context of society. However, despite the context of society, despite what pop culture is, despite the economic state of the world, despite the social state of the world, we are convinced, and that's why we're setting out to do what we're doing, we're convinced that as individuals, God has granted us enough power, and if you don't believe in God, believe that the individual human being has so much incredible potential. So the potential within us that lies in our heart, in our mind, in our soul, in our spirit, in our being is so enormous. Like, we might not be able to lift 1,000 pounds and be like Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody. I mean, we can be like that because if a human being can do it, we can do it. But my point is, physically we might be restrained by gravity and different things. But spiritually, in our being, in our imagination, there's no limit to what we can achieve. Especially playing, and again, if you watch the videos from last week, this we talked about as well, especially on the digital platform, in the digital age where things have become, they play in the virtual space, we play in the virtual space. That area of the virtual space, as we see with these billionaires that are rolling out $200 billion companies and even $1 trillion companies. We have in the world, I think now, $3 trillion companies. That is only possible online. Outside of online, it wasn't possible in the physical world. You couldn't have a guy like Mark Zuckerberg, over $100 billion, or Bezos, or Bill Gates, or one of them, right? Or Elon Musk. These guys are worth hundreds of billions of dollars. It's all because online, in the digital space, we live in a world of superabundance. And so we want to say to you and to ourselves, this is it could be a fallacy. It might be a fallacy. It might be total imagination, right? Fantasy, like a fictional world. But we believe it. We believe this is possible. That you and I can design the kind of life that we want, where we take authority over our life to such an extent that we design the future that we want. We create the future that we want. We invent the future that we want. We don't become victims of society, of peer pressure, of pop culture, of past and tradition, of how our parents live, as much as we want to honor our parents and not demean or belittle what they've achieved in life. It's a different generation. We stand on their shoulders, and if we stand on the shoulders of our parents and our foreparents of history and what has gone on before us, we stand on the shoulders of these great achievements of the past, but we're standing higher. You get my point? We're standing higher. We are on their shoulders, so we see farther. We see the horizon in a better way than our parents could have seen the horizon. Not only because technology is different, or society is different, or things are progressing, but because that's how life is. As we advance from generation to generation, we are rising up the mountain of human potential, right? So these things we take as inherent truth, that the human being is able, the individual is able to take authority, or to use a different word, take dominion. And if I'm not talking religion here, but the Bible is the textbook of life. If you're a Bible person, or you know anything about the Bible, you would know that it says in Genesis, in the first book of the Bible, which is a library of 66 books. But the first book says, there's a part of that book that says, take dominion of your life, of your surroundings, and take leadership, take responsibility. That's what that means. And when we say author our future, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about taking authority over your own life, not somebody else's life, not society. We're not talking about the government. We're not talking about some organization. We really and truly are talking about the individual person. And I would like us to get this, that I believe, and I want to get this message across, that we have authority, so much authority built into us. Sometimes it frustrates us because we don't exercise it. We play the victim, we play the small game, and we don't exercise the kind of power that is in us. We want to change that. by this live streaming, by our books and our magazine and the different things that we do in this company, we want to change how the individual sees him or herself, and eventually, one by one, brick by brick, we make an impact on society. Hopefully, global society, because we're on the internet, right? And so, the word authority. So much of what we talk about on this show actually emanate out of books, right? Out of literature, out of the great minds of the past. And this word authority came to me of authoring our future, authoring as authority, as take dominance, or take responsibility, take leadership of ourselves, of our own will. It came from a book that I read by Harold Bloom. Harold Bloom was the world's greatest reader. He sadly passed away, but he was the world's greatest reader. He read every single major classic that was ever written and produced, including Shakespeare, Dickens, Walt Whitman, every great work, James Joyce, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, all the great works ever produced. Geoffrey Chaucer, he was the master of literature. He was a literary critic. And Harold Bloom wrote a book called Genius, which outlined he took 100 original thinkers, writers, who wrote books that changed human society, that changed how we look at life, how we see life. And he wrote about, including Shakespeare, and he wrote in the book these 100 lives and how they came up with what he called original thinking, original ideas. So, and he had a word for it, which is the origination of ideas or concepts. Now, of course, these things sound very abstract, and how can they relate to everyday life and all those things? But trust me, I'm trying to articulate where this idea that we're authors of our future came from. It didn't come from just because I'm a writer. It came from books like this, like Harold Bloom's idea that we are originators. We're not just copiers, we're not just imitators. We don't just walk around life and become, and by peer pressure, by culture, by religion and tradition, we decide, oh, this is how I should live, or what the world says, or what the education system tells us, or what the government tells us. And I'm not an anarchist. I believe the government has a right to do what they're doing, especially in democracies where we elect them. But the point I want to drive home, is that we're originators. And if we see ourselves as originators, not only creative people, not only artists, but engineers and scientists and doctors and nurses and teachers, we originate great, and this is the show. We live in a world that people are scared to say, let's aim for greatness. People say, oh, let's live an ordinary life, I'm humble, and even how we talk, like in movies and pop culture, music, there's so much swearing, so many people who go around demeaning themselves and our humanity by swear words. And in the 60s and eventually by the 90s, by the early 2000s, we had a huge, massive social revolution, which is fine. I'm saying we need to have the freedom to do these things. If somebody wants to walk the street or go on TV or do a movie and be swearing and cussing and behaving with all kinds of demeaning and defiling language and behavior, that's fine. That's their right, once it doesn't harm the public, right? Once the public good is taken care of. However, so we've seen pop culture defiled and demeaned, and so we're taking a different approach. We could follow the crowd and say, oh, that's what people like. The music today with hip hop and all that, the swearing, the what do you call it? The rebellion against society and against good and against righteousness and against holiness, against the church that for so many hundred years had people in a straitjacket telling them you gotta be religious and you have to be live a righteous life, and the way to do that is to be strict and follow rules and rights and religion. We're not about that, but at the same time we are setting out to do a different thing than the world is doing. We're setting out to say to people, why not live a life that is good, that is noble, that is high? Why not develop a culture that is high culture, right? Like I like music like Leonard Cohen, for example. because of the high culture of that music. You listen to the lyrics and stuff, it's really fantastic. As against, say, Snoop Dogg or somebody like that. I'm not saying anything is bad in Snoop Dogg's music or any hip hop music or rap or whatever. I'm just saying that on this show, in our world, in our society, we're going to be different people. We're going to aim for greatness. We're going to aim to be not the average Joe on the block. And if we're arrogant, and if you think we're arrogant, if you think we're setting out to do something stupid, then that's fine. Then we're gonna find our crowd. We're gonna find the people who want to be like us. That's what we're looking for, and people who want to take humanity to the next level, right? Not take us down, but take us up. In how we're thinking, in the language that we use, in our vocabulary, in our heart, in the way our spirit works, instead of a spirit of gangsterism and against the police and anarchy, and which is a big thing that is going on, a very popular thing in pop culture. I mean, in fact, one of these songs preaching anarchy, basically anarchy in the lyrics, would hit a billion views on YouTube. That's the world we live in, and we might not hit a billion views on YouTube, but we're going to set out with integrity to do the things that we believe in. And one of the things that we believe in is that we can originate the life that we want. And the word authoring, in author our future, really means that we originate, we found, we create out of nothing. Out of nothing, we create the future that we think is possible, the future that we imagine. And it came from this, this video is going to stay on YouTube and our Facebook page and our website, and it's always going to be available. And however the show evolves over the next few years, into the future, this video is going to be always available to explain what we mean when we say authoring our future. So these videos last week and this week, we're having guests from tomorrow, but we want to explain the wrong word. Nobody needs an explanation. What we want to articulate, we want to outline what we're all about and why you should join us and why we think this is a good thing. When I say a good thing, I mean a prosperous thing, something that is abundant, something that is worthy rather than wasting time, right? We are setting out to be different. We are going to bring the message without religion, without regiment and ritual and strictness. We don't want that. We want playfulness. We want dynamism. You must be dynamic and playful and dramatic and go out there and have fun in life, but innocent fun. Don't go out there and damage your body with drugs and alcohol and silly things, but enjoy life, right? Enjoy people. Find people who you can really jive with, who you can have a conversation with that is amazing, that is inspiring and motivating. That's the kind of people we want around us, and that's what life success generates from. So I say all that to say that we believe in some ideas, and those ideas we're going to stand on those ideas. We're not backing down. We're not saying because pop culture is different or because people think differently, we are going to change our stuff and be on shifting sand. No, we're on solid ground. We're on rock, and one of the things that we believe is that the individual is empowered, the individual is capable, the individual is able, no matter who you are, no matter your age, no matter your ethnicity, no matter your color, no matter your nationality or your ethnicity, as a human being, we speak to human beings. We're not speaking to Canadians or Americans or Europeans or Caribbean people or Asians. We're speaking to human hearts. Human to human. We see only human beings. We don't see color, we don't see race, we don't see ethnicity, we don't see man versus woman. It's not a fight. We see complement. So we want to come to you with the ideas that we have for how the human being should be in the 21st century, in the digital age. And one of the things that we firmly believe, is that you can alter your future. You are authority over your life to the extent that you are authority over your future. And being an authority, you take dominion. You alter your future. Now the word author also has a different meaning than authority and dominion. It also means, of course, that you're right. Yes, it does mean that you're right. It's a necessary tool, I guess is the word. It's a necessary tool to have a pen and paper or a keyboard in your screen and to constantly write the things that are meaningful to you, right? As a writer, I know the value of writing. It's therapeutic. You write your story, even if nobody sees it, even if it's just in a journal. I write about 3,000 words a day. It ends up being like 1,000,000 words a year. And it's all sitting on my computer. A lot of people have not read them yet. I have books coming out, 10 books coming out, that nobody has seen yet. But yet, doing those books, writing so much, it has been such a therapeutic thing for me. And that's not because I'm special. I believe I'm gifted as a writer, but that has nothing to do with it. I believe you can do a journal. I believe you can make notes. I believe you can do bullet points. Get a journal and start writing things down. This is what my future should be like. This is the kind of person I want to be 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now. Right? I write a life plan every year. I update it. I have usually a 10-year life plan, which started way back in 11, when I was 11, by the way, on a smaller scale. Now it's of course more complicated, but I update it every year on my birthday. And so I believe that if we were to start writing things down, little things, just jotting things down, even on post-it that I have a whole bunch of notes that I have, hundreds and hundreds of cards and post-it notes and pages that I scribble on every single day. If something comes to my mind, I would write it down. And sometimes you do nothing with it, but just getting it out of your system is therapeutic, it's helpful, it illuminates and also enlightens our very being. Because when you write something and you go back 2 weeks later or 2 years later and read it, it's amazing. Sometimes I'm totally, even when I read my books actually, I'm so surprised that I wrote that. Wow. So writing is a beautiful, beautiful life skill. People talk about all kinds of life skill, exercise, drink water, eat fruits and vegetables. One key life skill, every successful person will tell you this, politician, business person, Olympic athlete, intellectual professors, whoever it is, any successful person would tell you that writing is a big tool of success, a big way to achieve success. And not complicated writing, not writing that is, I'm traumatized because I have to do an essay, not that kind of writing, just basic, simple note making and jotting things down. So the word authoring our future comes from these two roots, if you will, or these two stems, which is we as individuals are equipped to be authority of our future, to be the authority. Nobody tells us how we should live. We decide that as individuals. We take advice. I'm not saying don't take advice, but we author our future. We make notes, jot things down trust me, over a period of years, you're going to see this, whatever you're writing down, whatever your imagination comes up with, starts taking fruit. It does happen. And so the word authority comes from this root word of authoring or power, or which also is the same root word in politics. Politicians are really authority. And I want to transpose that concept away from organizations and abstractions and governments and big things that are bigger than us, corporations, into the individual, into us. We are the authority. We are the author of our future, not them. We are author of our future. We are the authority. We take dominion. We take dominion in our heart, in our will, and say, I'm going to go there and do what my imagination tells me to do. And that's why we talk about a good life, because when we talk about a good life, we mean be a good person. Because you can't give this kind of power to somebody who is evil and say to an evil person, go out there and take dominion and be authority in your future and design the future you want. And they go out there and they design something that is dark and ugly and destructive and leads to death. We're different. We're talking about taking authority to design something that is good, that is wholesome, that is of life, that is light and instead of darkness. That is love. Design a life that is, and love is something I'm going to take a whole show to deal on, to deal with, because the concept of love, the world doesn't, it really has a messed up concept of love. And this is something I want to add my thoughts to. What do I think love is? And how we should live to exercise love in our lives, right? But really, we should be people who set out for a life of sharing love in the world, love that is redemptive and healthy, not psychopathic, right? Because that's what a lot of people do. So I want to really store on this video, it's live but it's going to be stored on the video, what we mean when we say altering our future, because that phrase you're going to hear over and over and over and over again. Everybody we interview, every guest, every show we have, every slogan that we put out, every social media post, you're going to see that phrase everywhere, altering our future related to the Qualped life. Okay? Now the second thing I want to get into is, and we will elucidate more of this as we go along, as the show develops. Eventually I want this whole idea of altering our future to become not a cliche, but to become a kind of mantra that everybody lives, that everybody's talking about. This is not something we're going to trademark and copyright. We want everybody to talk about it. We want everybody to get the idea and the concept that I'm author of my future. I'm authority of me. I take dominion of my own soul, of my own spirit, of my own heart, of my own will. And I'm going to do what I imagine is best for my life and for the life of those around me, my society, right? I'm going to live for love. I'm going to live to be light instead of dark. I'm going to live for life instead of destruction, right? And so this is a necessary part of who we are if you're going to be a part of our community. So on the second thing on the screen there, it has 4 bullet points. So altering our future, and then of course the designed life. I want to talk about the designed life, which is related of course to altering our future, right? The designed life comes from another book that I read, a great writer, or also an originator. Remember we were talking about Harold Bloom. Harold Bloom, as a literary critic, put out this book called Genius around the year 2000 or so, and he outlined the 100 best thinkers in humanity, from Shakespeare to Chaucer to Einstein and Isaac Newton. These people wrote original works that changed human society. They originated who we are as human beings, right? And so that's where the word altering our future comes from. We originate new things, create new things, generate new things. And the designed life, which is the second thing that we set out to inculcate in ourselves and the people around us, is you live a life that is designed. You don't live a life that just happens. We live a life that is designed. Once you reach a certain age, say even 14 years old, 15, 16, you start designing your own life. And so we didn't just come up with these concepts. It came from research. It came from deep delving, deep questing, deep philosophical journey to understand life and people and what we're all about. And that's what we want to do here, not from an abstraction like gurus and that kind of thing, but from a life coaching, from a coaching perspective, from a mentoring perspective. We're sharing these things with people who would listen to us. And we can't just not everybody would listen to us. Some people might hate us for what we say, but a lot of people would love us for this because they are wholesome words. They're good things, which would connect with the heart of those who really set out to make a difference in the world. And so we want to talk about the designed life. Now, the designed life came from Edward de Bono. So Edward de Bono, again around the year 2000 or sometime like that, put out several books. One of them was New Thinking for the New Millennium. And what he was talking about was, he also passed away, so what he was talking about is how design thinking. How do you, and he developed a whole slew of teachings and I don't want to use the word products, teachings and material that the United Nations actually took from him and inculcated in a global education system. The global education system started I don't want to use these words, started installing, I should say, however, if it fits or not, his ideas on design thinking in schools everywhere, in education systems everywhere, from nursery to university. And one of the things that he developed is called 6 hats thinking, which management in companies used all over the world today. But we want to zero in on his idea, which he originated, which he propagated and really spread out across the world. He accomplished this amazing thing called design thinking. You design your thinking. And so our idea that the life that we live, the lifestyle that we live, could be designed came from Edward de Bono's book, that we can design our thinking, and if we can design our thinking, therefore we're designing our life. And so we as a company, and on the live stream as well, we want to share with you tools, technologies, techniques, tips, training, how to live the design life. Because there are many pieces on the internet, from videos to articles, and I think there's also a book called Design Your Life or something. So there's tons of material out there about the design life, but you could encounter the concept without having the how do we go about designing our life, and that's what we're setting out to do. So in the process of authoring our future, we take Edward de Bono's idea of the design thinking system and we apply it to our life. And we develop courses, we develop ebooks, we develop material, training manuals and things like that. And before COVID, workshops and all that we were planning. We had in the works workshops and seminars and conferences and all those things around the design life, because we want to build not only for others but for ourselves as well, because this is something that we can't come up with on our own. Like, the solution has to be within the community. The solution has to be within like-minded people brainstorming together and ideas flowing out of it, right? Like mist out of a stream or an ocean or something. That's how things work. No one person can sit in isolation and come up with something that is amazing. It comes from rubbing shoulders, from talking, from conversation, and out of that pot of boiling, bubbling words and language and throwing our spirits together and working together, out of it comes something beautiful, which is how do we, I mean, we have a program how to design our life. And what I'm saying is it's an evolving program. It keeps developing, it keeps growing. It doesn't stay stagnant, it scales, right? So as authors of our future, as authority and people of we take dominion like the kings and queens over ourself, that's why self-mastery is an important part of what we're talking about. We become designers of our life. We design the life that we want. Now the third thing on the, of course, the third thing on the, what do you call it? The bullet list there of 4 things on the screen is, what is it? Intelligence for the digital age. Now, we talked about this last week in several shows, but when we talk about intelligence for the digital age, it's self-explanatory, right? I mean, the digital age is upon us, and it's so new. It's only 25 years old, and it's evolving so fast because technology is moving at a rate that is exponential. It doesn't add, it multiplies. So it's not linear, it scales up very fast. Technology is not 10 plus 10 equals 20, it's 10 multiplied by 10, which is equal to 100. Exponential growth, it keeps multiplying, and it's moving so fast. Now we have robots, we have AI, you have VR coming out, you have augmented reality, and AI is exploding all over the world. Soon they're going to start the Internet of Things, which it's already started. I mean, it's going to become pervasive, and the masses would suddenly encounter a world where everything they buy, from tables to chairs to beds to utilities to even your kitchen stuff, even maybe plates and stuff, would have a chip embedded somewhere doing something smart. Everything would be hooked up to the internet, because we are merging physical space into virtual space, which we dealt with last week as well. You can look at that video on YouTube or our Facebook page, Future Stars Media Enterprise. So we talked about the virtual world and how it's merging and incorporating, sucking in, if you will, the physical world. Everything is becoming digital. And so we need to develop an intelligence, an understanding, a wisdom of how to play on the digital platform. Because a lot of people are making money and living the life on digital platform. And it's not about making money, it's about lifestyle, it's about freedom, it's about being able to alter the future that you want. But as much as many people are making it on the internet, many people are not. Billions are suffering because they don't know how to make use of YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn and all, Twitter and all those places, Reddit and Tumblr and Pinterest. You know, there's a slew of stuff on the internet, ebooks for example, that we can all benefit from. But billions of people don't know that yet. They don't know how. And so we need to develop intelligence for the digital age. And so we are setting out not only to urge everybody who connects with us to alter their future and become authority and become dominion of their life and to design the kind of lifestyle that they want, but we are also setting out to show you and help us as well how to play on this digital platform. It's so easy for me to set up a live streaming show. I mean, the initial capital was you had to spend money to set it up, but at the end of the day, it's not hard to get the software, to learn the skills to develop this live streaming show, which we're hoping to become, not hoping, we're not just hoping, we're definitely going to make it happen, a 24/7 live streaming show that not only live streaming but news and, you know, different content. The world that is emerging is a different world than the world that is going away. The future is very, very different from the past. And the future is happening so fast. You have a guy like Ray Kurzweil at Singularity University and Diamandis who are developing the future. They're writing the blueprint for the future of humanity. People say Bill Gates caused COVID and all that. You really want to know who caused COVID and what is going on in the world? Look at people like Ray Kurzweil, who is a futurist of extraordinary brain power, surpassing Elon Musk and Brendan Page at Google and Zuckerberg. Ray Kurzweil is doing such phenomenal work to create the future of humanity. It's astonishing. And he's joined by people like Diamandis and a slew of others, and they're funded by the US government and the European Union and Google and Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft, all funding this guy, Ray Kurzweil, because he's creating a future blueprint for humanity that is amazing. Now we delve into those things. Kurzweil's book, Singularity, is a book that informs this show and informs this company and informs the way we're designing our own future, the way we're altering our own future. So Ray Kurzweil is a very, very important factor in what we're doing, and if you haven't heard of him, check him out. He is the one, actually he was introduced to me by a friend of mine who is visually impaired, who's blind. And the reason my blind friend knew him is because he developed all the technology for visually impaired people, like sound, and now the visually impaired and the totally blind person could go online and browse the internet just as you and me. They're just as empowered as you and I who visually see things, right? And they go to university, they read books, the visually impaired people is not impaired anymore. They're independent and they do amazing things just like you and I because of Ray Kurzweil. He developed the technology that caused it to happen. He invented, in fact, the scanner and many technology stuff. And this guy is behind the scenes creating the future for humanity. And we delve into what he's doing and we bring it to you, and we design our courses and our system around the life that Ray Kurzweil is saying we should prepare for, the future that we should prepare for. So when we say we bring intelligence for how to live in the digital age, it's based on this kind of conversation that we engage in, the kind of books that we, delve into. And we are saying that out of the work that Ray Kurzweil and Diamandis and all these guys are doing, you can glean intelligence, how to play on the digital platform. And we are doing the hard work. the book Singularity is Near, which Kurzweil authored and published quite a few years ago, it's a thick book. It's a big book, but we went through it and we absorbed some of the information that he said, and we're still doing that. I mean, it's so dense that sometimes it's hard to get an idea and run with it. You have to go it over and over and over again to get the full gist of it, right? That's what deep, long form reading is all about. But anyway, I just want to emphasize the point that when we're talking about authoring our future, the idea came from Harold Bloom, and his idea in his book Genius for the originators of humanity, the ideas that shaped human civilization over the past 2,000 years. And then when we talk about the designed life, we're talking about Edward de Bono's ideas and books on design thinking. And when we talk about intelligence for the digital age, we're looking at people like Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, who go out there to create the future through building out the concept, the philosophy, the ideas that drive the digital age. That's what they're doing. They're creating the digital age. And things are not just happening to mankind out of the blue. These things are designed. These things are managed. They're futurists and blueprint makers, if you will, architects of the world system, who are making these things come into play. And if we align with what is really going on behind the scenes, then we become intelligent on how to play on these platforms, on the digital platform, on the digital global village, mediated space where we can become whatever we imagine we could become, right? So, the ideas that we propagate are not flippant ideas, are not ideas that we came up with overnight and put, nice little labels on. No. These are deep things, and that's why we hope the people who would connect with us are deep people. The people who would connect with us are originators, thinkers, designers. Even if you haven't designed anything in your life, if you have never given thought to any deep life issue, however old you are, a young person, an old person, if you have a heart that longs for something more than just mere existence, you're the kind of person who aligns with us, and we want to connect with you. And the other thing we talk about is the lifestyle of aspiration. Again, this is a key fundamental idea that drives what we're doing here today. Aspiration, you see, okay, let me quickly say this. Out of the entire industrial age, over the past 100 years, from now going back to about 1895, 1898, 1890s, to now, has been the industrial age, about 125 years or so, but more like a full 100 years of a century of the industrial age, where man moved from farms and peasants and nobility, kings and queens ruling the land, into factories and workers and bosses and employer-employee. That only happened in the past 100 years, and it happened because of one guy. Again, we go back to Harold Bloom's idea of who originated out of their own genius, really, their own muse, ideas for society. And so, back in 1776, Adam Smith, this guy from England, wrote and published a book called The Wealth of Nations. And out of that book came the idea of needs and wants. So man, he was saying, has needs, and then once those needs are satisfied, which is survival, then he has wants. And so he said we can build out a world, which is the global economy that we live in today. But back then he was the one who originated the idea, and then Henry Ford and people like him ran with it, with those ideas from his book, that we can build a world and factories everywhere to make things that people want. Governments can provide their needs, right, which is basic stuff like food and shelter and healthcare and pure water and that kind of thing. 6 basic needs. Once those are satisfied, the human being wouldn't sit and be idle. The human being needs to satisfy something called wants. We want more things. We want fancy cars. We want a nicer house. We want to compete with the Joneses next door. We want to read books. We want to make movies. We want to entertain ourselves. We want to do fancy stuff and all those things. Also, we see this idea touched on in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you have survival at the bottom, and then as you go up, it gets more and more into wants and pleasure and all those things. And so for 100 years, humanity lived to satisfy needs, and then go after what they want. Needs and wants. And we built a consumerist material society over 100 years, where people went to shopping malls and fashion became everything. And of course, linked to that, one day we will deal with this, not today, but existentialism became the philosophy of the age, of the whole industrial age, which is the past 100 years. We were materialistic, we wanted self-pleasure, we go to bars and back in the day, in the 80s, discos and clubs, and we drank and we became decadent and hedonistic, and now the world is suffering from an opioid crisis because all people want to do is get high and ignore reality, not that there is anything real out there anymore. My point is, Adam Smith built a world from his mind. He put out the idea, and then industrialists like Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, who was once the richest man in the world back in the day, who in fact originated spoons and forks and knives and stuff from aluminum, right? He made aluminum utensils and stuff, and he's the one who built public libraries all across the world. Andrew Carnegie, check him out. He used to be the richest man in the world. Now nobody knows him. Nobody knows his name. Well, the public, of course, intellectuals and professors would know him, but a lot of people don't know Andrew Carnegie. He was once the richest man in the world back in the 1920s, 2030s, 2040s, and he is the one who brought about kitchen utensils and all those things. It's life is amazing. Anyway, what we saw happen for the industrial age was mankind going after our needs and our wants. And then Peter Drucker came along. Peter Drucker used to be, again, he passed away. I read all these books of dead people. Well, they were alive when I was reading them. He passed away not so long ago. Peter Drucker was the world's greatest management guru. People say that he's the management guru of extraordinary achievement. He wrote endless books about management. Companies follow his theories and build their companies. I'm sure Facebook does, and Google and everybody, they adopted his theories of management, and they work it. But Peter Drucker said something important. He studied the charity movement in America. Now America has a huge charity movement. Like millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people in America, over 100 million, actually are involved. Well, maybe they used to be after COVID, I don't know. But they were involved in the church movement, religion, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, all those. Of course, Christianity, being the main charity movement in America, and they got tax exemptions for churches and all those things. And what Peter Drucker found was that these places, millions of people would volunteer to clean the floor, to mop the floor, to do the most menial work. You'd have doctors come in, and accountants and professionals to mop the floor of a church or clean the toilet, or they would do any menial work. They volunteer, and they would give of their money, and they would, America became this movement of volunteers, give of their time and their energy and their money and their resources. Old people would write their wills to give it away to churches and stuff, and the whole charity movement became a fascination of Peter Drucker, this business corporation management expert and originator of management techniques and teachings and stuff. And so he looked at this thing and he thought, corporate America has to pay everybody. If you don't pay somebody, they don't show up to work. Right? Nobody will show up to work if you don't pay them. But here are churches getting tax exemption from the government. They pay no taxes. And people show up at their door, anxious, willing to do whatever work is available. Cut the lawn, clear the snow, mop the floor, build something if it needs to be built. The volunteering movement astonished him. And he was like, so here's one part of America where you have to pay somebody to show up. And here's a part of America where they show up and they do their charity work with more happiness than when they receive their pay. And he was fascinated with this. And out of that, he came up with the idea. The point I'm getting at is, Peter Drucker came up with the idea that what a human being wants is much more than needs and wants fulfilled, as Adam Smith had found. What the human being wants, what you and I want, we have aspirations. We aspire to greater things, which Maslow called this self-actualization, the lifestyle of self-actualization, where we actually move to that point, the tip of Maslow's triangle, of living a life that is beyond ourselves. We give back to society. We create great art. We become authors of books and movies and all those things. The reason we watch so much movies and listen to music is because the fascination of high achievement, high human achievement, is a very, very human motivation, a very, very human thing. And so what fascinates me is how Peter Drucker came up with this idea that what really motivates people is not if you satisfy their needs and give them what they want, which is necessary. It's a stairs, right? You have to do those things to get to this higher level, where we aspire to something. We have aspirations. And so what we're talking about here, when we talk about lifestyle of aspiration, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about being authors of our future, okay? And how much time more do we have? Okay, we're about to wrap up. So we want to be author. We want to take authority and take dominion over our own heart, our soul, our spirit. Let's do an audit. Let's go inside every now and again and introspect and say, what is in there? What is in me? Let me find out. And if it's good enough, if it's precious, holy, if it's high, if it's noble, if it's worthy for me to pour it into somebody else's heart, into the world, into talking to humanity and give them something of value that they can improve their own life. Let me alter my future so I become that kind of a person. And then day by day, the life that I live, the lifestyle that I live, is to design the lifestyle that I want. Not to be, I don't want to say victim again, but to be a subject like used to be back in the feudal age when you had lords and kings and queens and everybody else was a subject. Peasants, right? We are people who can take dominion of our own development and our own future and author the kind of future that we want. And then we want to look into what is going on in the world in terms of who is designing the future, what kind of a future they are designing, what is coming tomorrow. Like I have this book there that I talked about last week, Who Owns Tomorrow? Who owns tomorrow? You and I. You and I own tomorrow. We own tomorrow if we author our future. If we design the life that we would like. If we learn intelligently what tomorrow looks like. Intelligence for the digital age. Ray Kurzweil, Peter Diamandis, and all those guys who talk about the future, the futurists, Alvin Toffler, we study those works and we apply them to our lives. Now I know a lot of you can't do that because you don't have the time or the energy or the motivation for it. We do it. Don't worry. We're going to do the hard work. We read the books. We are the ones who are doing that already. We started already. It's years in the making. And we're designing technology to bring all this out, to make it a lifestyle, to make it an easy thing. Like you could jump on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You should be able to jump on our platform and live this kind of design life. We're working on that. And then of course, the main thing, we're not setting out here to say we're going to solve the things that you want. If you want a Mercedes, don't come to us. If you want a private jet, don't come to us. If you want basic survival, food and shelter, we can help where we can, but we're not operating a charity and we don't do those things. But we're going to help where we can. I'm not saying we're horrible people, we are kind people. My point is, we're not in the business, or business is the wrong word, we're not in the movement of supplying your needs or your wants. What we're about is that Maslow self-actualization. What we're about is what Peter Drucker called aspirational living, where whatever you aspire to, come to us. And we'll work together and, bypass ways to make it happen. So I want to let this video be the record that outlines and illustrates what the blueprint of what we're all about. We believe sincerely, out of a deep embedding in the literature around this idea, that we're authors of our future. We're the authority, we're the dominion of ourselves. The individual must take charge of him or herself. We believe that we can design the life that we want. And it comes out of, again, deep study. The idea is not just an idea, it's not just pretty words, it is actually a deep, profound belief that we have based on studies, especially of Edward de Bono's work. And then, of course, the intelligence with the digital age comes from our work in futurism, where we look into the future, what is coming tomorrow, and we intelligently design the kind of things that we need to do today, so we are on the bandwagon, we're on the train, we're on the tracks for tomorrow, we're not left behind. And of course, we live not to supply needs and wants, we live to supply, not to supply, but to come into an alignment, into partnership with people who want to live their aspirations, whatever your aspirations are, and those aspirations come from your imagination. One day we'll go into that. How do we activate our imagination? For example, by reading deep literature and all those things, so that we start aspiring for something higher in life than just existing, or than just doing, little things and hedonistic stuff and debasing ourselves, but rising to be who we created to be, our potential as human beings. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. Tomorrow we're going to have a guest here, Croydon DeMello. Amazing human being. He's a musician, and hopefully he's going to have some words of wisdom for us, which I'm sure he would. We're in a Rotary Club together, and he's quite a human being, a very, very accomplished musician, has twins, 2 little kids who are twins, and amazing family. So he's going to be here with us tomorrow, and then during the week we have more guests showing up, and you're going to see who they are. No famous people yet. We will do that eventually, but for now, thank you for joining me, and enjoy your Monday night. Hope the week is amazing for you and for us as well. And see you again tomorrow. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.